Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining today's reading. We're going to continue the part 3 of A Second Chance by Srila Prabhupada. Before reading, I just wanted to give the brief introduction on the book. A Second Chance is the story of a near-death experience by Srila Prabhupada. This explores the ancient Vedic history of Ajamila, a young religious man who falls into a life of crime and debauchery, but is saved at the time of death by chanting God's name. Based on the Srimad-Bhagavatam, this book explains the nature of the soul's journey, the law of karma, life after death, and the necessity of purifying one's consciousness, and also the potency of bhakti-yoga to grant spiritual liberation and a second chance at life. We are reading from the Vedabase, and Vedabase.io is a free online multilingual research tool designed primarily to explore the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And the rights for all the content presented in this presentation are reserved by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International. And we thank them for making all the Srila Prabhupada's books available for us, and also all the devotees who are maintaining this Vedabase that you can see at the bottom of the screen. Various devotees have contributed in maintaining this website, and we thank all of them for making this available for us so that we can read online on the internet. Thank you very much for all of those devotees. And then before we start the reading, so we're going to offer prayers, and then we'll start our reading. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathamritam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhamritamscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha Krupa sindubhya cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Continuing part 3 of A Second Chance. chapter number 15. Atonement. The Vishnudutas continued. Ajamila has already atoned for all his sinful actions. Indeed, he has atoned not only for sins performed in one life, but for those performed in millions of lives. For in a helpless condition, he chanted the holy name of Narayana. Even though he did not chant purely, he chanted without offense, and therefore he is now pure and eligible for liberation. Even previously, while eating and at other times, Ajamila would call his son, saying, "My dear Narayana, please come here." Although calling the name of his son, he nevertheless uttered the 4 syllables, Na, Ra, Ya, Na. Simply by chanting the name of Narayana in this way, he sufficiently atoned for the sinful reactions of millions of lives. The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for one who steals gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a brahmana, or for one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for a man who murders his father, the king, or women, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who then considers, because this man has chanted my name, my duty is to give him protection. Srimad-Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 2nd chapter, text number 7 to 10. Absolute absolution. The Vishnudutas charged that the Yamadutas did not know whom to arrest and whom not to arrest. The Yamadutas regularly arrest sinful persons, but in this case, the Yamadutas came to arrest Ajamila, who had been released from all sinful reactions simply by chanting Narayana. The Vishnudutas criticized the Yamadutas, saying, "You do not know whom to punish and whom not to punish." Even though Ajamila committed so many sinful activities, he is now freed from the reactions to his sins. He has completely counteracted all those sins by chanting the holy name of Narayana. Why are you now attempting to arrest this person as if you were a criminal? Although he had no intention of chanting the holy name, still he has chanted it, and therefore he is now free of sin. The Yamadutas had considered only the external situation of Ajamila. Since he was extremely sinful during his life, they thought he should be taken to Yamaraja. They did not know that he had become free from the reactions of all his sins. The Vishnudutas thus instructed them that because he had chanted the name Narayana at the time of his death, and also throughout his life, he was freed from all sinful reactions. In this regard, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakura quotes the following verses from the scriptures. Namno hi yavati shaktihi papa nirharane harehe tavat kartum na shaknoti patakam pataki naraha. Simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reactions to more sins than he can commit. Brihad Vishnu Purana. Avashenapi yannamni kirtite sarvapatakai puman vimuchyate sadhya simkhatrashtair mrugairiva. If one chants the holy name, even in a helpless condition or without desiring to do so, all of one's sinful reactions immediately depart, just as the lion's roar causes the small animals in the forest to flee in fear. Garuda Purana. Sakradvucharitam yena harir iti aksharadvayam vattha parikarastena mokshaya gamanam prati. A person who once chants the holy name of the Lord, consisting of these 2 syllables, Ha-ri, guarantees his path to liberation. Skanda Purana. These are some verses explaining why the Vishnudutas stopped the Yamadutas from taking Ajamila to Yamaraja. There are different kinds of sins, one of which is stealing. Thieves and burglars are very sinful. Another sinful activity is drunkenness. Those who are addicted to intoxication and stealing are condemned by the Vishnudutas. Other examples of sins are being unfaithful to one's friends, killing a Brahmana or a Vaishnava, dishonoring one's spiritual master or teacher, killing a woman, killing a king, and killing a cow. These are among the worst sins. But the Vishnu Dutas say that even though a person has committed many such sins, if he utters the holy name of Narayana even once, he at once becomes free from sinful reactions. Srila Swami says, chanting the holy name of Narayana, Lord Hari, not only counteracted all of Ajamila's sinful reactions, but it made him eligible to become liberated. And therefore, at the time of death, he was transferred to the spiritual world. Chanting the holy name of Krishna counteracts all sins, more than one can possibly commit. Because Ajamila had chanted the holy name without offense, and because he chanted sincerely, he completely freed himself from all sinful reactions. This is why we are stressing the chanting of Hare Krishna so much. Pious activities, austerity, sacrifice, everything is done simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. There is no need of any other process of yoga, atonement, or austerity and penance. Simply by chanting without offense, one achieves the results of all other ritualistic performances prescribed in the Vedas. Previously, when engaged in sinful activities to maintain his family, Ajamila chanted the name of Narayana, but he did so without offense. To chant the holy name of the Lord just to counteract one's sinful activities or to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name is offensive. Namno balad yasyahi papa buddhihi. But although Ajamila engaged in sinful activities, he never chanted the holy name of Narayana to counteract them. He simply chanted the name Narayana to call his son. Therefore, his chanting was effective. Because he chanted the holy name in this way, he had already vanquished the accumulated sinful reactions of many, many lives. The conclusion is that one who always chants the holy name of the Lord without offense is always pure. As confirmed in these verses, Ajamila was already sinless, and because he chanted the name of Narayana, he remained sinless. It did not matter that he was calling his son. The name itself was effective. Foolish persons say that one can chant any name, even a demigod's name, and get the same result as chanting the holy name of the Lord. This is Mayavada philosophy. The Mayavadis think that everyone is God. They say the demigods are God, I am God, you are God. Therefore, they say one can chant any name and become liberated. In Bengal, it is very popular to hold Kali Kirtana. A party of people meet and chant Kali, Kali, Kali are the names of so many so-called avatars. One rascal added his wife's name to the chanting, and his foolish followers accepted it. In this way, Mayavadi philosophers are leading their followers straight to hell. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore strongly warned against hearing from the Mayavadi philosophers, lest one's spiritual life be spoiled and the path of devotional service blocked. We should always remember this, and when there is any question of chanting other names, we should chant the holy name of Vishnu, the holy name of Krishna, no one else's name. The scriptures advise us to chant only the name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. There are thousands of names of Vishnu, and in one sense, Krishna and Vishnu are the same. Yet, the scriptures explain that chanting 1,000 names of Vishnu gives the result of chanting the name of Rama just once. And chanting Rama 3 times gives the result of chanting Krishna once. In other words, one automatically gets all good results just by chanting the holy name of Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore recommends this chanting process according to Shastric injunction. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Iva Kevalam, Kalau Nastaiva, Nastaiva, Nastaiva Gatiranjana. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Brahmanarade Purana. By taking up this chanting process, we are immediately freed from all sinful reactions. Thus, we begin our spiritual life. Without being freed from sinful life, there is no possibility of becoming a pure Vaishnava. Offenses against the holy name. Even a devotee may sometimes commit some sinful activity, either unknowingly or due to past sinful behavior. But if he sincerely repents and thinking I should not have done this, but I am so sinful that I have again committed this sin. The Supreme Lord will excuse him on the basis of his genuine repentance. However, if he intentionally commits sinful activities, expecting that the Lord will forgive him because he is chanting Hare Krishna, that is inexcusable. If one commits sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name, he commits namaparad, or an offense against the holy name. Of the 10 kinds of offenses, committing sins on the strength of chanting is the most serious. If after being freed from all sinful reactions by chanting Hare Krishna, one again commits the same sins, he is guilty of a grievous crime. For an ordinary man, that sinful activity may not be regarded as so seriously, but for one who is chanting Hare Krishna, it is a dangerous offense. Just as it is a serious crime for a government officer in a high post to take advantage of his position and accept a bribe. Such men are the most punishable criminals. If a policeman steals, his crime and subsequent punishment are greater than that of an ordinary man who steals. That is the law. Similarly, one who takes gross advantage of the Hare Krishna mantra, thinking, I am chanting Hare Krishna, so even if I commit some sin, I will be excused, will not achieve the ultimate goal of chanting the holy name. He becomes entangled in a cycle. He is freed, then he again commits sin, then he is freed and again commits sin, freed and again commits sin. In this way, he is never liberated. Nevertheless, one should not think that one's sinful reactions will fail to be counteracted by the chanting of Hare Krishna. One of the 10 offenses against the holy name of the Lord is to think that the holy name cannot eradicate sinful reactions. Those who cultivate offenseless chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra should have firm faith in the words of the Shastra that declare the chanting of the holy names of Krishna to be supremely powerful. As the Vishnudutas say here, the chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for all kinds of sinners. But very often, the difficulty is that one will chant Hare Krishna and again commit sin. The perfection of chanting. The key to successful chanting, therefore, is to carefully avoid sin altogether. By chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, a person is freed from all reactions to his previous sins. And if he avoids sinning again, he very quickly becomes an advanced devotee. His mind becomes fixed upon the lotus feet of Krishna. If we regularly chant Hare Krishna without offense, we shall remain free from all sinful reaction, and our attachment for the Supreme Lord in devotional service will increase. Once there was an argument between Thakur Haridas and an ignorant so-called Brahmana concerning the power of the holy name of Krishna. In an assembly of Vaishnavas, Haridas Thakur said, not only does a person become situated on the platform, Brahma-bhuta, by offenselessly chanting the holy names of the Lord, but his dormant love of Godhead manifests and he becomes liberated automatically. The Brahmana protested, don't exaggerate the effects of chanting in this way. One becomes liberated only after performing many austerities and penances. But you say that simply by chanting Hare Krishna, one becomes liberated. If that's not the case, I shall certainly cut off your nose. Haridas Thakur replied, if chanting Hare Krishna does not produce liberation as a byproduct, then I shall cut off my nose. The members of the assembly witnessing this argument became extremely agitated upon seeing the great offense the Brahmana had committed against Haridas Thakur, and they immediately expelled the offender. Shortly thereafter, the Brahmana contracted leprosy, and his beautiful nose melted away. This incident is narrated in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are 3 stages of chanting the holy name: chanting with offense, chanting as a liberated person, and chanting with full love of God. These progressive stages of chanting are like the ripening of a mango. An unripe mango tastes sour, but when the fruit is fully ripened, it tastes very sweet. Initially, we may be reluctant to chant, but when we become liberated, the chanting is so sweet that we cannot give it up. In this regard, Srila Rupa Goswami has composed a beautiful verse describing the sweetness of the holy name of Krishna. Tunde Tandava Niratim Vitanute Tundavali Labdhaye Karnakroda Kadambini Ghatayate Karnambhudebhya Spruham Cheta Prangana Sangini Vijayate Sarvendriyanam Krutim Najani Nojane Janita Kila Kiyadbhiramrutai Krishneti Varnadvai. I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krishna have produced. When we chant the holy name of Krishna, it appears to dance within the mouth. And we then desire many, many mouths. When the name of Krishna enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind, and therefore all the senses become inert. These are the symptoms of one who is on the liberated platform of chanting. At that stage, called prema, one has a great relish for chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But this stage is attainable only if one follows the regulative principles. We have to be cautious. After being cured of a diseased condition, we first enter the convalescent stage. If we do something wrong, the disease may return. It is not that we become liberated and can do anything and everything. At all times, we have to stick by the regulative principles of devotional life. Accumulated benefits from chanting the holy name. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur provides additional insight into the power of the holy name in his commentary to verses 9 and 10. He writes his commentary in the form of a dialogue concerning how one can become free from all sinful reactions simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Someone may say it may be accepted that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes freed from all the reactions of sinful life. However, if a person commits sinful acts in full consciousness, not only once, but many, many times, he is unable to free himself from the reactions of such sins, even after atoning for them for 12 years or more. How is it possible then that simply by once chanting the holy name of the Lord, one immediately becomes freed from the reactions of such sins? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur replies by quoting verses 9 and 10 of this. The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for one who steals gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a brahmana, or for a person who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for a person who murders his father, the king, or women, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who then considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. One may atone for sinful life and vanquish all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name. And this is beyond ordinary atonement. Ordinary atonement may temporarily protect a sinful person, but it does not completely cleanse his heart of the deep-rooted desire to commit sinful acts. Therefore, atonement is not as powerful as the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. In the Shastras, it is said that if a person only once chants the holy name and completely surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord immediately considers him his ward and is always inclined to give him protection. This is confirmed by Srila Swami. Thus, when Ajamila was in great danger of being carried off by the order carriers of Yamaraja, the Lord immediately sent his personal order carriers to protect him. And because Ajamila was freed from all sinful reactions, the Vishnuduta spoke on his behalf. Ajamila had named his son Narayana, and because he loved the boy very much, he would call him again and again. Although he was calling for his son, the name itself was powerful because the name Narayana is not different from Lord Narayana. When Ajamila named his son Narayana, all the reactions of his sinful life were neutralized. And as he continued calling his son and thus chanting the holy name of Narayana thousands of times, he was actually unconsciously advancing in Krishna consciousness. One may argue, since Ajamila was constantly chanting the name of Narayana, how was it possible for him to be associating with a prostitute and taking of wine? By his sinful actions, he was bringing suffering upon himself again and again. And therefore, one may say that only his chanting of the holy name of Narayana at the time of death, and not his chanting during his lifetime, was the cause of his being free. However, his chanting during his life would then have been a nama aparadha. Namno baladhyasya papa buddhihi. One who continues to act sinfully and tries to neutralize his sins by chanting the holy name of the Lord is a nama aparadhi, an offender to the holy name. In response, it may be said that Ajamila's chanting throughout his life was inoffensive because he did not chant the name of Narayana with the purpose of counteracting his sins. He was in so much illusion that he did not realize he was addicted to sinful actions. Nor did he know that his chanting of the holy name Narayana was neutralizing them. Thus, during his life, he did not commit a nama aparadha, and his repeated chanting of the holy name of Narayana while calling his son may be called pure chanting. Because of this pure chanting, Ajamila unconsciously accumulated the results of bhakti, devotional service. Indeed, even his first utterance of the holy name was sufficient to nullify all the sinful reactions of his life. To cite a logical example, a fig tree does not immediately yield fruits, but in time the fruits are available. Similarly, Ajamila's devotional service grew little by little, and therefore, although he committed very sinful acts, the reactions did not affect him. The Shastras, it is said that if one chants the holy name of the Lord even once, the reactions of past, present, or future sinful life do not affect him. To give another example, if one extracts the poison fangs of a serpent, this saves the serpent's future victims from poisonous effects, even if the serpent bites repeatedly. Similarly, if a devotee chants the holy name even once inoffensively, this protects him eternally. He need only wait for the results of the chanting to mature in due course of time. Chapter 16. Awakening Love of God. The Vishnu Dutas continued. By following the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or undergoing atonement, sinful men do not become as purified as by once chanting the holy name of Lord Hari. Although ritualistic atonement may free one from sinful reactions, it does not awaken devotional service, unlike the chanting of the Lord's names, which remains one of the Lord's famed qualities, attributes, pastimes, and paraphernalia. The ritualistic ceremonies of atonement recommended in the religious scriptures are insufficient to cleanse the heart. Absolutely. Because after atonement, one's mind again runs toward material activities. Consequently, for one who wants liberation from the fruitive reactions of material activities, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra or glorification of the name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord is recommended as the most perfect process of atonement, because such chanting completely eradicates the dirt from one's heart. At the time of death, Ajamila helplessly and very loudly chanted the holy name of Narayana. That chanting alone has already freed him from the reactions of all sinful life. Therefore, O servants of Yamaraja, do not try to take him to your master for punishment in hellish conditions. One who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins. Even if he chants the holy name jokingly, for musical entertainment, neglectfully, or even to indicate something else, this is accepted by all learned scholars of the scriptures. If a person somehow or other chants the holy name of Hari while dying because of an accident, such as falling from the top of a house, slipping and suffering broken bones while traveling on the road, being bitten by a snake, being afflicted with pain and high fever, or being injured by a weapon, he is immediately absolved from having to enter hellish life, even if he was sinful throughout his life. Learned scholars and sages have carefully ascertained that one should atone for the heaviest sins by undergoing a heavy process of atonement, and one should atone for lighter sins by undergoing lighter atonement. But chanting the Hare Krishna mantra vanquishes all the effects of sinful activities, regardless of whether heavy or light. Although one may neutralize the reactions of sinful life through austerity, charity, vows, and other such methods, These pious activities cannot uproot the material desires in one's heart. However, one who serves the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead is immediately freed from all such contaminations. As a fire burns dry grass to ashes, so the holy name of the Lord, whether chanted knowingly or unknowingly, unfailingly burns to ashes all the reactions of one's sinful activities. Even if a person is unaware of the potency of a certain medicine, if he takes that medicine or is forced to take it, it will act even without his knowledge. For its potency does not depend on the patient's understanding. Similarly, even though one does not know the value of chanting the holy name of the Lord, if one chants the holy name knowingly or unknowingly, the chanting will be very effective. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued speaking to King Parikshit. My dear king, having thus perfectly judged the principles of devotional service with reasoning and arguments, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu released the Brahmana Ajamila from the bondage of the Yamadutas and saved him from imminent death. Then the Yamadutas went to Yamaraj and explained to him everything that had happened. The Brahmana Ajamila was now free from fear, having been released from the nooses of Yamaraja's servants. Coming to his senses, he immediately offered obeisances to the Vishnudutas by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraja. But when the Vishnudutas saw that Ajamila was attempting to say something, they suddenly disappeared from his presence. Srimad-Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 2nd chapter, texts 11 to 23. Atonement versus chanting the holy name. Here, the Vishnudutas say that the Vedic scriptures recommend various means of atonement by which a person may be delivered from the reactions of his sinful activities. In Christianity, there is also a means of atonement. If a Catholic commits a sin, for example, he is insisted to go to a priest and confess, I have committed such and such sin. The priest is supposed to be an authorized representative of God, and so if he excuses the sinner, the sin becomes nullified. However, such atonement cannot purify the sinful man as such as the purifying process of chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. The man who confesses to having sinned leaves the church and often commits the same sin again. In other words, there is no question of becoming purified by this process of atonement. Still, atonement of various kinds is recommended in the Vedas for those who are not ready to take up the process of pure devotional service. Methods of atonement are proportional to the severity of the sin. They are meant to counteract. For example, if you fall sick with a cough or influenza, the cost of medicine prescribed by the doctor may be little. But if you are stricken with tuberculosis, the medicine will become more costly. Likewise, Prayaschitta, or the ritualistic ceremonies for counteracting sinful activities, is proportionately less or greater according to the gravity of the sin. If we commit a grievous sin, then the penance will be severe. These are the prescriptions given by the great sages like Parashara Muni and Manu. The sages have composed 20 kinds of scriptures, constituting the Dharma Shastra. And these scriptures are meant for atoning for one's sins and elevating one to the heavenly planets. For example, it is said that if one has committed certain crimes, he must vow to fast for a certain number of days or give charity. Or a businessman who has earned $1 million by sinful activities must give in charity accordingly. There are many such prescribed methods of atonement, but here the Vishnudutas say, although these prescribed methods of atonement are authorized and true, they cannot purify the heart. We can see that even though the adherents of Hinduism, Mohammedanism, and Christianity perform such rituals of atonement, they cannot refrain from again committing the same sins. One who practices these principles of atonement is like a rascal patient who goes to a physician for treatment. The physician gives him medicine and instructs him how to take it, but the foolish patient takes the medicine according to his own whims, and so his condition worsens. Again, he goes to the physician crying, Doctor, please give me more medicine. In this regard, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakura describes an incident that took place when Samba, one of Lord Krishna's sons, was rescued from the punishment of the Kauravas. Samba fell in love with Lakshmana, the daughter of Duryodhana. And since according to Kshatriya custom, one is not offered a Kshatriya's daughter unless he displays his chivalrous valor, Samba abducted her. Consequently, Samba was arrested by the Kauravas. Later, when Lord Balrama came to rescue him, there was an argument about Samba's release. Since the argument was not settled, Balrama showed his power in such a way that all of Hastinapura trembled and would have been vanquished as if by a great earthquake. Then the matter was settled, and Samba married Duryodhana's daughter. The purport is that one should take shelter of Krishna and Balram, whose protective power is so great that it cannot be equaled in the material world. However powerful the reactions of one's sins, they will immediately be vanquished if one chants the name of Hari, Krishna, Balarama, or Narayana. Therefore, such rituals of atonement as fasting and giving charity are not accepted by the Vishnudutas. They say such prescribed ritualistic ceremonies cannot purify a man as effectively as chanting the holy name of God. Undoubtedly, one becomes free from all contamination of sinful life by executing particular religious principles. But these are ultimately insufficient because the mind is so disturbed that even after being freed from the contamination of sinful reactions, the mind again becomes attracted to sinful activity. The purificatory power of devotional service to Krishna, beginning with the chanting of the holy name, is stated in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, text 42. Bhakti pareshana bhavo viraktir anyatra cha. Devotional service to the Lord is so powerful that one who performs it is immediately freed from all material desires. All desires within this material world are sinful because material desire means sense gratification, which always involves action that is more or less sinful. But pure devotional service is anyabhilashita sunya, free from material desires. One who is situated in devotional service no longer has material desires, and thus he is beyond sinful life. Material desires should be completely stopped. Otherwise, although one's austerities, penances, and charity may free one from sin for the time being, one's desires will reappear because his heart is impure. Thus, he will act sinfully and suffer. The special advantage of devotional service is that it frees one of all material desires. One cannot purify one's heart by atonement alone. A patient suffering from syphilis goes to the doctor, who gives him an injection and charges a high fee. Yes, he may be cured, but when he again engages in illicit sex, he once again contracts syphilis. So his heart was not purified of the desire for illicit sex. But if one takes to Krishna consciousness, he forgets illicit sex. That is the test of one's Krishna consciousness. A sincere devotee never commits sin because his heart has become purified by chanting the holy name and engaging in devotional service. Of course, there are pseudo devotees who commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting Hare Krishna. They are great offenders against the holy name. We should not use the holy name like a machine, thinking that because the chanting process consumes sinful reactions, we can freely commit more sin. This is the greatest offense against the holy name of Krishna. Whatever sins we may have previously committed are immediately eradicated by offenseless chanting of the holy name of the Lord, even just once. But we must not sin again. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgave the sinful Jagai and Madhai who had been drunkards, woman hunters, meat eaters, and gamblers. But these two sinners fell down at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu and cried, "Sirs, we are so sinful, kindly deliver us." Lord Chaitanya agreed on the condition that they promise not to commit any more sins. He said, "Whatever you have done, I shall excuse, but do not do it again." Thus Jagai and Madhai vowed, "This is the end of our sinful activities. We shall not do them anymore." When a person is initiated by a spiritual master, the reactions of his sins immediately become nullified. But that does not mean he can again commit sins. Krishna consciousness means following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. And so we initiate disciples according to the principle he showed in the case of Jagai and Madhai. We accept many people into our society as duly initiated disciples, but only if they vow to observe these regulations. No more illicit sex, no more gambling, and no more intoxication, and no more animal killing or meat eating. These regulations are necessary. Because if one takes up spiritual life and at the same time goes on committing sinful activities, he will never be able to make progress. As Krishna clearly says in the Bhagavad Gita 7.28, Yesham tvantagata papam jananam punya karmanam tedvandamoha nirmukta bhajante mam drudhavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated or freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. If you are actually serious about entering into the kingdom of God by Vaikuntha, then we should be very careful to follow the four regulative principles mentioned above. One must not have any sex except to have children within marriage. One must not indulge in intoxication. One must not gamble. And one must not eat meat, fish, or eggs, or anything else beyond the foods established for human beings: grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, and sugar. Such foodstuffs are sattvika, are pure and good, and they are allotted for human consumption. One should not imitate the cats and dogs, reasoning that because the animals are eating meat, human beings can do likewise. If everything eatable is food, why not eat stool? Stool is also food. Hawks eat stool. But human beings should not eat like hawks, who eat all kinds of unclean foods. We have to discriminate. If you want to enter into spiritual life, we must observe these four principles of restriction. This may mean undergoing some austerity, but this is the purpose of human life. When we have purified our existence through austerity, we will be eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. But without being purified, we can never enter. Meditation on Krishna's form. If one chants the holy name of God, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, eventually he will see Krishna's form, realize Krishna's qualities, and remember Krishna's pastimes. That is the effect of the pure chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura comments that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord has special significance that distinguishes it from the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of atonement for severe, more severe, or most severe sins. There are 20 types of religious scriptures called Dharma Shastras, beginning with the Manu Samhita and Parashara Samhita. But herein it is stressed that although one may become free from the reactions of the most sinful activities by following the religious principles of the scriptures, this cannot promote a sinful man to the stage of loving service to the Lord. On the other hand, chanting the holy name of the Lord even once not only frees one immediately from the reactions of the greatest sins, but also begins to raise one to the platform of rendering loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, one serves the Lord by remembering his form, attributes, and pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that it is because of the Lord's omnipotence that this is all possible simply by chanting his holy name. What cannot be achieved through the performance of Vedic rituals can easily be achieved through the chanting of the Lord's holy name. To chant the holy name and dance in ecstasy is so easy, sublime, and effective that one can readily achieve all the benefits of spiritual life simply by following this process. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declares, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the congregational chanting of Lord Krishna's holy name. The Sankirtana movement we have started offers the best process for immediately becoming purified of all sinful reactions and coming to the platform of spiritual life. Although Ajamila became fallen in his later days, in his youth he was a brahmachari and was properly trained by his father. He knew the name, form, and pastimes of Narayana, but by bad association he forgot them. However, as soon as he chanted the name of Lord Narayana on his deathbed, he again remembered all his past pious activities, and therefore he was saved. That chanting and hearing of Lord's name and glories is the best means of purifying the heart of sinful propensities is confirmed at the beginning of the Srimad-Bhagavatam 1-17. Srunvatam swakadha Krishna punya sravana kirtanaha rujjantasto hi abhadrani vidhunoti suhrusatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. It is a special mercy of the Supreme Lord that as soon as he sees a person glorifying his name, form, and pastimes, he personally cleanses the dirt from that person's heart. Even if one does not understand the meaning of the Lord's name, form, and pastimes, one is purified simply by hearing or chanting them. One's main purpose in human life should be to purify one's existence and achieve liberation. As long as one has a material body, one is understood to be impure. In such an impure material condition, one cannot enjoy a truly blissful life, although everyone seeks it. Therefore, everyone requires purification. As Lord Rishabhadeva says in the Srimad-Bhagavatam 5.5.1, Tapo divyam putraka era saptam sudhyet yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. My dear sons, you must perform tapasya, austerity, to purify your existence. Then you will come to the spiritual platform and enjoy unending spiritual happiness. The tapasya of chanting and glorifying the name, form, and pastimes of the Lord is a very easy purifying process by which everyone can become happy. Therefore, everyone who desires the ultimate cleansing of his heart must adopt this process. Other processes such as karma, jnana, and yoga cannot cleanse the heart absolutely. Mayavadis or impersonalists cannot glorify the name, form, and pastimes of the Lord because they think that God has no form and that his pastimes are maya, illusory. Why should God not have a form? We have a form because our Father has a form. So why should the Supreme Father not have a form? In the Bhagavad Gita 14.4, Krishna says, Aham bija pradapita. I am the seed-giving father of all beings. The Christians also believe that God is the Supreme Father. If the sons all have forms, how is it that the Father has no form? We cannot be born of a Father who is formless. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Krishna is the supreme controller and the cause of all causes. And he possesses an eternal form of knowledge and bliss. Brahma Samhita 5.1. Vigraha means form. If God is the cause of all causes, the creator, and he is creating all these forms, how can he be formless? God has a form, but it is not a form like ours. His form is Satchidananda, but ours is just the opposite. God's form is Sat, eternally existing, while man's form is Asat, temporary. God's form is Chit, full of knowledge, but ours is Achit, full of ignorance. And his form is full of Ananda, bliss, but ours is full of Nirananda, misery. It is only because we cannot conceive of a form so different from ours that sometimes it is said God is Nirakara without form. God's form is transcendental. That means his body is not material but spiritual. His form is of a different nature than that to which we are accustomed. In the Vedas, it is said that God sees but that he has no eyes. This means that God's eyes are unlike ours. They are spiritual, not material. We can see only so far, whereas God can see everything because he has eyes everywhere. His eyes, his form, his hands and legs are of a different nature than ours. Unlike our knowledge, Krishna's knowledge is unlimited. As he says in the Bhagavad Gita 7.26, I know past, present, future, everything. Earlier, Bhagavad Gita 4.5, he reminds Arjuna, both you and I have taken many births. I remember them all. but you have forgotten them. Thus, there is no limit to his knowledge. His knowledge, his body, and his happiness are completely different from our knowledge, body, and happiness. Therefore, it is only out of ignorance that some people say the absolute truth is nirakara, formless. Thinking that God has no form is just imagination. It is material thought. We have a form, so he must have a form, though not a form like ours. Only fools think God is ultimately formless. Krishna declares this in the Bhagavad Gita 7.24. Avyaktam yaktim apannam manyante mam abuddhaya. Unintelligent men think that I was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. In another place in Bhagavad Gita, those who deride the personal form of God are called mudhas or asses. God certainly has a form, but his form is entirely different from ours. That is the real understanding of nirakara. And as Krishna's form is not like our material forms, so his pastimes are also not of this material nature. Anyone who thinks this is immediately liberated. Krishna confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti sojuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna purely, one can come to understand the pastimes of the Supreme Lord and thus become liberated. Chanting is easy and sublime. One who offenselessly chants Hare Krishna will always remember Krishna's form, pastimes, qualities, and entourage. And that remembrance will liberate him from all sinful reactions and all material bondage. The Vishnudutas here declare that although there are many methods prescribed in the Vedas for attaining liberation from sinful reactions, these methods are all insufficient because they cannot elevate a person to the standard of absolute purity. Those who practice other methods of purification mentioned in the Vedas generally desire some material benefit, such as elevation to the heavenly kingdom. But a devotee does not care for elevation to the heavenly planets. A devotee does not care a fig for any planet in this material world, because he knows that the benefit of entering into heavenly kingdom is temporary. We may live for thousands of years on a higher planet and enjoy a very high standard of life, complete with beautiful wife, abundant wealth, and the finest wine, but there is no permanent benefit. For a devotee, such a life is hellish, because he does not wish to live without Krishna. That is genuine spiritual realization. We simply care for Krishna and how Krishna will be happy. That is real happiness. We try to please Krishna. Kamsa was also Krishna conscious, insofar as he was always thinking of Krishna, but his meditation was unfavorable. His meditation was on how to kill Krishna. He was thinking of Krishna, but he thought of him as his enemy. That is certainly not bhakti or devotion. Thinking of Krishna but being opposed to his desire, opposed to satisfying him, is not bhakti. One must act favorably in Krishna consciousness. Arjuna was a devotee because he acted favorably for the satisfaction of Krishna. Materially speaking, Arjuna's actions appear unfavorable, but they were favorable as far as Krishna was concerned. Therefore, they were perfect and free from all sin. Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. It is important to understand the difference between activities of bhakti and ordinary pious activities. Cultivation of knowledge and pious activities is on the material platform. Piety does not amount to liberation. A pious man is situated on the platform of goodness, but he remains a conditioned soul, bound up by good reactions. One may even become a brahmana, a very pious man, but that does not mean he has become a devotee. And sometimes a devotee appears to act against the rules of mundane piety. Arjuna, for example, was an exalted devotee of Lord Krishna, but he killed his relatives. Ignorant people may say Arjuna is not a good man. Look, he killed his grandfather, his teacher, and his nephews, devastating the entire family. But in the Bhagavad Gita 4.3, Krishna says to Arjuna, Bhaktosi me, you are my very dear friend. In the estimation of the material world, Arjuna may not be a good man, but because he is a soul surrendered to the desire of the Supreme Lord, he must be accepted as a devotee. While it is true that Arjuna killed his own kinsman, in the eyes of Krishna, he remained a dear friend and devotee. That is the difference between a devotee and a good man of this world. A good man of this world tries to always act piously, for he knows that if he acts badly, he will suffer sinful reactions. But a devotee, although naturally a very good man, can act like a bad man on Krishna's order and still not fall down. He remains a pure devotee and is very dear to the Lord. As mentioned above, hearing Krishna's pastimes is very purifying. But such hearing has to be done with the right attitude. Some persons with material vision are very much attracted to Krishna's Rasa Leela, his pastimes with his cowherd girlfriends. But they do not appreciate his fighting and killing the demons. They do not know that the absolute truth Krishna is good in any and all circumstances. Whether he is enjoying in the company of his devotees or killing the demons, he remains the absolute truth. And therefore, all his pastimes are equally purifying to hear. Generally, people go to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam from professional reciters who are especially fond of describing the Rasa Leela. The people think, oh, Krishna is embracing a girl, this is very nice. At times, 10,000 people will gather to hear the Rasa Leela. And in this way, the reciters earn a nice profit. Thus, people come to think that the Srimad-Bhagavatam means the 10th canto, which contains the Rasa Leela and other pastimes. But what they don't realize is that there are so many important instructions in the other cantos as well. Lord Krishna, the summum bonum, is described in the 10th canto. And the other 9 cantos are especially meant for purifying the heart so that one may understand Krishna. Therefore, we instruct everyone, first of all, to read the first 9 cantos of Srimad-Bhagavatam very carefully. Then, one may read the 10th canto with proper understanding. Those who hear about Krishna's Rasa Leela and take it as an ordinary story cannot know Krishna in truth. The Rasa Leela is not an affair of lust. It is a transcendental pastime of love between Radha and Krishna. According to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the chapters of the Srimad-Bhagavatam describing the Rasa Leela are not meant for ordinary persons. They are meant for liberated persons only. Therefore, these descriptions of the Rasa Leela should not be described to ordinary people. Those who are advanced devotees liberated from material contamination can try to understand Krishna's Rasa Leela. One must not try to imagine the Rasa Leela of Radha and Krishna in mundane terms. But even though ordinary hearers of Srimad-Bhagavatam do not know the deep significance of Krishna's Rasa Leela, because they hear about Krishna's pastimes, they become purified. And if they hear from authorized sources, they will be promoted to the transcendental devotional platform. The disease within the heart is lust, the desire to enjoy. And by hearing from authorized sources about Krishna's pastimes of loving exchanges with the gopis, the deep-rooted lusty desires in the heart will be completely eradicated. Unfortunately, most people do not hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam from authoritative sources. They hear only from professional reciters. Therefore, they remain materially diseased, full of lusty desires. Some become Sahajiya, pretending to be Krishna and Radharani and her gopi friends. In this way, they believe as if they were the supreme enjoyer. The pure devotee's business is to satisfy Krishna. And as soon as he chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he remembers how to do so. In the material world, the living entities are inclined to go astray. The mind and senses generally become attracted to material objects of desire. But one should draw one's mind to the eternal by the practice of bhakti-yoga. Otherwise, one's mind and senses will force one to perform karma, activities for personal sense gratification. And as soon as a person engages in sense gratification, he commits sin. Therefore, to avoid karmic activities, which quickly entangle one in the process of repeated birth and death, one must take to the process of Krishna consciousness. Here the Vishnudutas advise us in the same way. If we want to be freed from the reactions of karma, we should glorify the Supreme Lord 24 hours a day. That will purify us. Srila Swami says, instead of taking to prescribed ritualistic ceremonies, simply engage your mind in describing or glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the process of Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness or devotional service, there are 9 processes. Hearing about the transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord, chanting about these, remembering these, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering Him respectful worship, offering Him prayers, becoming His servant, considering Him one's friend, and surrendering everything to Him. One who practices one or more of these processes of devotional service throughout his life is sure to remember Krishna at the time of death. That is the art of Krishna consciousness. We cannot abandon all activities and simply chant Hare Krishna. Therefore, we keep ourselves constantly engaged in practical devotional service so that our mind is fixed upon Krishna. Then at the time of death, we are sure to attain total liberation from material existence. One who is not practiced in devotional service cannot all of a sudden chant the holy name of Narayana at the time of death. He must have prior practice in order to chant effectively. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Kirtaniya Sada Hari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. This is the best way of remembering Krishna in this age. And always remembering Krishna ensures our return home back to Godhead. As the Lord promises in Bhagavad Gita 8.8, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasa Nanyagamina Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Parthanu Chintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, is sure to reach me. That Ajamila remembered Krishna was not accidental. He had chanted the name of Lord Narayana earlier in his life, but he forgot the Lord due to bad association. Nevertheless, the transcendental effect of his earlier practice was there at the time of his death, even though he was calling out the name of his youngest son, not intending to call for Krishna. Indiscriminate mercy. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.6, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam shajachyante kalevaram samtame vaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. One who practices chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is naturally expected to chant Hare Krishna when he meets with some accident. Even without such practice, however, if one somehow or other chants the holy name of the Lord when he meets with an accident and dies, he will be saved from hellish life after death. For example, if a person falls from a high rooftop, but somehow or other cries out, Hare Krishna, that cry will be heard by the Lord. Or, if in our sleep we dream that a tiger is coming to eat us and we chant Hare Krishna in our sleep, the Lord hears that also. Although Ajamila indirectly chanted the holy name of Lord Narayana through the medium of the name of his youngest son, he at once remembered Lord Narayana. Therefore, in the Vedic society, children are given God's names. It is not that the child becomes God. If we name a child Narayana, it is understood that he is Narayana Dasa, the servant of Lord Narayana. Similarly, we give our disciples spiritual names such as Vishnu Dasa, Vamana Dasa, or Krishna Dasa. That Ajamila remembered Lord Narayana by calling his son of the same name is confirmed in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which says that the power of the sound vibration of the holy name is absolute. One attains freedom from all sinful reactions immediately upon recitation of the holy name, even if one does not understand the potency of the name. Whether one is chanting with devotion and reverence or without any faith, more sinful reactions are vanquished than a sinful man can commit. Krishna's name has such unlimited potency. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in Navadvipa, the people used to imitate the Lord and his associates. At that time, the land was ruled by Mohammedans, and sometimes the people would go to one of the government officials and complain. The Hindus are chanting Hare Krishna, dancing wildly and thrashing their arms about. In this way, they imitated the Sankirtana of Lord Chaitanya. In Western countries, the onlookers also imitate our chanting of Hare Krishna when we go out to chant on the street. Even by imitating, however, they become purified. The holy name is so powerful that if someone derides us saying, "Why are you chanting Hare Krishna? It is nonsense," he also gets spiritual benefit. The chanting of Krishna's holy name is like the sun rising in one's darkened heart. This universe is full of darkness, and only by Krishna's arrangement for sunshine do we see light. As soon as the sun sets, the world becomes under the influence of darkness. Likewise, our heart is full of the darkness of ignorance, but there is a light to dispel the darkness, and that light is Krishna consciousness. Due to impious activities, we are in ignorance. But to those who constantly engage in the service of the Lord with love and affection, Krishna reveals himself in the heart. By Krishna's special mercy, the devotees are always kept in the light of Krishna consciousness. Krishna knows everyone's intention or motive, and his mercy is especially meant for those who are sincerely engaged in his service. Krishna is equal to everyone, and as such, his mercy is unlimited. However, he is very much inclined toward his devotees. If one is prepared to accept his mercy unlimitedly, then he is prepared to give it unlimitedly. On account of our envious nature, however, we are not prepared to take his mercy. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.66, Krishna says, "Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam saranam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami." Just give up all other so-called religions and surrender to me alone. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. He openly offers his protection, but we do not take it. Sunlight is also equally distributed throughout the universe. But if we close this door and do not come out to take advantage of it, that is our own fault. Sunlight and moonlight do not discriminate, illuminating the houses of Brahmanas while leaving Chandalas, the Agita's houses, in darkness. No, the light is distributed indiscriminately. Similarly, the mercy of Krishna is equally available to everyone, but it is up to each individual to accept God's freely distributed mercy. Naturally, Krishna bestows more mercy upon his devotee because the devotee has the capacity to accept that mercy through service. The process of receiving the causeless mercy of the Lord is to render more and more service. We should be very enthusiastic to render service to the Lord. That enthusiasm will come when we chant Hare Krishna with faith and determination. Someone may argue, I can see how chanting the holy name with faith is purifying, but if a man has no faith, then how will the holy name act? Here are some examples. If an innocent child touches fire, knowingly or unknowingly, it will burn him. Or if we give medicine to a child, it acts, even though he does not know the potency of the medicine or how it is acting. Poison also acts in this way. Similarly, the Hare Krishna mantra acts, even though we may not know how or why. Even ignorant lower creatures are benefited when we chant loudly. This is confirmed by Srila Haridas Thakur. When one chants Hare Krishna loudly, every living entity, moving or non-moving, benefits. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ajamila 3.69. The potency of chanting Hare Krishna is confirmed by the spread of the Krishna consciousness movement. In countries where the Hare Krishna movement is spreading, learned scholars and other thoughtful men are realizing its effectiveness. For example, Dr. Stilson Judah, a learned scholar, has been very much attracted to this movement because he has actually seen that it is turning hippies addicted to drugs into pure Vaishnavas who voluntarily become servants of Krishna and humanity. Even a few years ago, such hippies did not know the Hare Krishna mantra, but now they are chanting it and becoming pure Vaishnavas. Thus, they are becoming free from all sinful activities such as illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. This is practical proof of the effectiveness of the Hare Krishna mantra. One may or may not know the value of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, but if one somehow or other chants it, he will immediately be purified, just as one who takes a potent medicine will feel its effects, regardless of whether he takes it knowingly or unknowingly. Another analogy. Fire will act, regardless of whether handled by an innocent child or by someone well aware of its power. If a field of dry grass is set afire, either by a man who knows the power of fire or by a child who does not, the grass will be burned to ashes. Similarly, a person may or may not know the power of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, but if he chants the holy name, he will become free from all sinful reactions. This is the correct conclusion of the Vishnu Dutas. Extended lease on life. The servants of Yamaraja are so powerful that generally they cannot be hindered anywhere. But this time, they were baffled and disappointed in their attempt to take away a man they considered sinful. Therefore, they immediately returned to Yamaraj and described to him everything that had happened. They thought that it was unnatural that Ajamila, who had seemed eligible to be brought before Yamaraja, had been released by the Vishnu Dutas. Now, Ajamila was fully Krishna conscious. By the divine association of the Vishnu Dutas who were highly elevated Vaishnavas, Ajamila came to his full consciousness. He had been arrested, but then he had been released, and now he was free from all fear. This is liberation. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness by the association of Vaishnavas or devotees of the Lord, one becomes free from all fear. This position is eternal. Ajamila became fearless due to being reinstated in his constitutional position. At once he began to offer nice prayers to the Vishnu Dutas. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees and oceans of mercy. This is the life of a devotee. He is always offering prayers to other devotees. First, he offers respects to his spiritual master, next to his grand spiritual master, next to his great grand spiritual master, and then to all devotees of Lord Krishna. Vaishnavas are also Vishnu Dutas because they carry out the orders of Krishna. Lord Krishna is very eager for all the conditioned souls rotting in this material world to surrender to him and be saved from material pangs in this life and punishment in hellish conditions after death. A Vaishnava therefore tries to bring conditioned souls to their senses. Those who are fortunate like Ajamila are saved by the Vishnu Dutas or Vaishnavas, and thus they return home back to Godhead. Good examples of merciful Vaishnavas are the 6 Goswamis. They scrutinizingly studied all kinds of scriptures to establish the principles of Krishna consciousness. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the nectar of devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami quotes many verses from different scriptures in support of the principles of bhakti. Why did he and the other Goswamis go to so much trouble and research? It is very laborious to research the Vedic literature in search of authoritative statements, and then to assimilate them in order to support the Vedic conclusions. But the 6 Goswamis took up that laborious work out of compassion for humanity. Spreading Krishna consciousness, as the 6 Goswamis did, is the best welfare work for all humanity. There seem to be many other welfare activities, but their benefit is only temporary. The great welfare work of spreading Krishna consciousness undertaken by exalted personalities, such as the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavana, has real value for all men because it is based upon substantial spiritual truth. The Vaishnavas are just like desire trees, kalpavruksha, for they can fulfill all one's spiritual desires. And thus they are also oceans of mercy, Kripa Sindhu. Ajamila heard the conversation between the Yamadutas and the Vishnu Dutas, and simply by hearing he was completely cleansed of all material contamination. Such is the purifying effect of hearing about Krishna. Anyone who regularly hears the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or any other Vaishnava literature gets the same benefit as Ajamila and becomes free from all material contamination. Ajamila was very grateful to the Vishnudutas, and he immediately offered his respects by bowing down before them. Similarly, we have to make firm our relationship with the servants of Lord Vishnu. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanu Dasa. One should consider oneself the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Without offering respect to the servant of Krishna, no one can approach Krishna. After Ajamila had offered his respects to the Vishnudutas, he prepared to say something out of gratitude. But they immediately took their leave because they preferred that he glorify the Supreme Lord instead. Since all his sinful reactions had been vanquished, Ajamila was now prepared to glorify the Lord. Indeed, one cannot glorify the Lord sincerely unless one is free from all sinful activities. This is confirmed by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita 7.28. Yesham tantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam tedbanda moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated or freed from the duality of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. The Vishnudutas made Ajamila aware of devotional service so that he might soon become fit to return home back to Godhead. To increase his eagerness to glorify the Lord, they disappeared so that he would feel separation in their absence. In the mood of separation, glorification of the Lord is very intense. Chapter 17. The moment of truth. Sukadeva Goswami continued. After hearing the discourses between Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, Ajamila could understand the religious principles that act under the three modes of material nature. These principles are mentioned in the three Vedas. He could also understand the transcendental religious principles, which are above the modes of material nature and which concern the relationship between the living being and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Furthermore, Ajamila heard glorification of the name, fame, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He thus became a perfectly pure devotee. He could then remember his past sinful activities, which he greatly regretted having performed. Ajamila said, Alas, being a servant of my senses, how degraded I became. I fell down from my position as a duly qualified Brahmana and begot children in the womb of a prostitute. Alas, all condemnation upon me. I acted so sinfully that I degraded my family tradition. Indeed, I gave up my chaste and beautiful young wife to have sexual intercourse with a fallen prostitute accustomed to drinking wine. All condemnation upon me. My father and mother were old and had no one to look after them. Because I did not take care of them, they lived with great difficulty. Alas, like an abominable lower class man, I ungratefully left them in that condition. It is now clear that as a consequence of such activities, a sinful person like me must be thrown into hellish conditions meant for those who have broken religious principles and must therefore suffer extreme miseries. Was this a dream I saw, or was it reality? I saw fearsome men with ropes in their hands coming to arrest me and drag me away. Where have they gone? And where have those four liberated and very beautiful persons gone, who released me from arrest and saved me from being dragged down to the hellish regions? I am certainly most abominable and unfortunate to have merged into the ocean of sinful activities. But nevertheless, because of my previous spiritual activities, I could see those four exalted personalities who came to rescue me. Now I feel exceedingly happy because of their visit. Were it not for my past devotional service, how could I, a most unclean keeper of a prostitute, have gotten an opportunity to chant the holy name of Narayana when I was just ready to die? Certainly, it would not have been possible. Srimad-Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, 2nd Chapter, text 24 to 33. Repentance. Having heard the conversation between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, Ajamila became firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. He began to lament, how unfortunate I was to engage in so many sinful activities. This is the proper attitude for a Krishna conscious devotee. Whatever he may have done in the past, no matter how sinful, when he comes in contact with devotees and hears transcendental topics in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavata Kada, he becomes purified and laments his previous condition. Indeed, the symptom of his purification is that he laments having behaved so sinfully. He repents and discontinues his past grievous conduct. Ajamila was now at the stage of devotional service in which one is freed from all material impediments and is completely satisfied. Ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Having reached this platform, Ajamila began to lament for his past materialistic activities and glorify the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who takes to Krishna consciousness naturally endeavors to follow the rules of devotional service, and he regularly chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A person should not suppose that because he has taken to Krishna consciousness, he can continue his sinful activities and have their effects counteracted. We have repeatedly warned that this is the greatest offense against the holy name. Like Ajamila, one should repent. How unfortunate I was to engage in so many sinful activities. But now, by the grace of Krishna, I have come to know that I was acting improperly. Thus, Ajamila greatly repented, remembering all his sinful activities. He remembered that he had been trained by his father to be a first-class Brahmana, that he had been educated in the science of the Vedas, and that he had married a beautiful and chaste wife, a girl who was innocent and highly qualified, having come from a respectable Brahmana family. Ajamila now lamented, I rejected her and accepted a prostitute and abominable drunkard. It is a Vedic regulation that men of the higher classes, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, do not beget children in the wombs of lower class women. Therefore, the custom in Vedic society is to examine the horoscopes of a girl and boy being considered for marriage to see whether their combination is suitable. Vedic astrology reveals whether one has been born in a Brahmana class, the Kshatriya class, the Vaishya class, or the Sudra class, according to the three qualities of material nature. The horoscope must be examined because a marriage between a boy of the Brahmana class and a girl of the Sudra class is incompatible. Married life would be miserable for both husband and wife. Of course, this is a material calculation according to the three modes of nature. Yet, it is important for the peace and prosperity of the family and society. But if the boy and girl are devotees, there need be no such considerations. A devotee is transcendental, and therefore, in a marriage between devotees, the boy and girl form a very happy combination. Ajamila thought, because I failed to be self-controlled, I was degraded to an abominable life, and all my Brahmanical qualifications were nullified. This is the mentality of one who is becoming a pure devotee. When one is elevated to a platform of devotional service by the grace of the Lord and the spiritual master, one first regrets his past sinful activities. This helps one advance in spiritual life. The Vishnu Dutas had given Ajamila the chance to become a pure devotee. And the first duty of a devotee is to regret his past sinful activities in illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. Not only should a devotee give up his past bad habits, but he must always regret his past sinful acts. This is the standard of pure devotion. Debts to pay. Ajamila repented his negligence in performing his duty to his wife, father, and mother. It is the duty of a grown-up children to render service to their aged parents. This practice should be reintroduced into present society. Otherwise, what is the use of family life? Proper family life means that the husband should be protective, the wife chaste, and the children grateful to their father and mother. Children should think, my father and mother gave me so much service. When I was unable to walk, they carried me. When I was unable to eat, they fed me. They gave me an education. They gave me life. A bona fide son thinks of ways to render service to his father and mother. And just as a woman is expected to be faithful to her husband, so the husband should be grateful for her service and protect her. Because of his association with a prostitute, however, Ajamila had abandoned all his duties. Regretting this, he now considered himself quite fallen. According to the Vedic social system, as soon as one takes birth, he becomes indebted to so many persons. We are indebted to rishis or great sages because we derive knowledge from their transcendental writings, such as the Srimad-Bhagavatam compiled by Srila Vyasadeva. The authors of the scripture know past, present, and future, and we are urged to take advantage of such invaluable knowledge. Thus, we are indebted to the sages. We are also indebted to the demigods, for they manage the affairs of the universe, supplying it with every essential sunshine from the sun god Surya, moonshine from the moon god Chandra, air from Vayu, and so on. Each element is controlled by a particular demigod. We are also indebted to ordinary living entities from whom we take service. For example, we take milk from the cow. According to the Vedic understanding, the cow is considered one of our mothers because we drink her milk. Just as at birth, we drink our mother's milk. The Srimad Bhagavatam lists 7 mothers: our own mother, the wife of our teacher or spiritual master, the wife of a Brahmana, the wife of the king, the nurse, the cow, and the earth. We are indebted to all 7 of these mothers, and also to our father, brothers, friends, relatives, and forefathers. Also, if someone accepts charity, he becomes indebted, and that debt has to be repaid, just as borrowed money must be repaid. Therefore, devotees should not accept charity from anyone unless they intend to spend it in Krishna's service. For a devotee to accept donations just to satisfy his belly is great sin. Brahmanas and sannyasis who accept charity from others must accept it with great caution. According to the Vedic social structure, only the brahmachari, sannyasi, and brahmana are allowed to collect money in charity. An ordinary householder must not. The brahmachari may collect alms from the public for serving his spiritual master, and a sannyasi may collect money for serving God, Krishna. The Vedas likewise direct people to give charity to the brahmanas because they know how to spend it for Krishna. Charity given to a worthy person is in the mode of goodness. Charity given for one's own personal benefit is touched with the mode of passion, and the charity given without any consideration is sunk in the mode of ignorance. For instance, if we give money to a rascal, he will likely take it to the nearest liquor shop. Those who are rich may think it does not matter. They can afford not to discriminate. But the scriptures describe these 3 kinds of charity. You may well ask, how can one hope to liquidate all his debts? The answer is only by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna or Mukunda. The name Mukunda indicates one who liberates us from material contamination. We are indebted to demigods, but we cannot take shelter of them. If we actually want shelter, we should take shelter of Krishna, because he alone can free us from all debts. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if he excuses us, then all other departmental managers, such as the demigods, must also excuse us. Ajamila understood his position as a debtor, but since he had now taken shelter at the lotus feet of Mukunda, all his debts were cleared. Simply by taking shelter of Lord Narayana, who is non-different from Mukunda, Ajamila became free. Similarly, if we want to be free from all sinful reactions, we have no alternative but to surrender to Krishna. As Krishna recommends, Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja, simply surrender unto me. We should follow Krishna's advice. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to liquidate all our debts to so many persons, especially in this age of Kali. Permanent credit. In the material world, there is danger at every step. Even for those who are pure devotees, there is the danger of falling down from the standard of purity. However, in the Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.5.17, Narada Muni assures us, Tyaktva sadharmam charanambhujam hare bhajan avakota pate tato yadi yatra kvava bhadra abhuta mushyakim kovartha apto bhajatam swadharmataha.
The word dharma in this verse means occupational duties. A Brahmana, for example, has certain occupational duties. Similarly, a Kshatriya has his, and so also do the Vaishya and Sudra. If a person gives up his occupational duties and takes to Krishna consciousness, strictly following all the rules and regulations, but if due to his immature execution of devotional service he falls down, there is still no loss for him. Whatever he does as service to the Supreme Lord, although it may be a small percentage of his whole life, will remain to his credit. He does not lose it. On the other hand, one who perfectly executes his occupational duties but fails to worship Krishna ultimately gains nothing. Strictly discharging one's occupational duties means living a life of piety. But suppose through these pious activities you are promoted to the heavenly kingdom. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that as soon as the effects of your pious activities are finished, you will be forced to return to this planet. Another point, if a person performs pious activities in this life, such as giving in charity, he must return here in the next life to accept the beneficial results of his pious actions. That means he must accept another term of material life. So it is not a sound idea to hope for acquisition of the effects of pious activities. Unfortunately, even in India, people are more inclined to perform pious activities, such as giving in charity, than to take up devotional service to Krishna. They hope that by performing such tapasya or austerity, they will be elevated at death to a higher standard of material life in the heavenly planets. They also worship demigods for this purpose, or to gain a benediction in this life. Lord Shiva, for example, very quickly gives his worshipper material benedictions, whatever his devotee wants. He is very kind. He is known as Asutosha, he who is easily satisfied. For this reason, people are fond of worshipping him for material prosperity. But Sri Krishna condemns such worship in the Bhagavad Gita 7.20. Kamaistair prithagnana prapajyanti anyadevataha. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desire surrender unto the demigods. The Srimad-Bhagavatam tells the story of Vrukasura, who sought a terrible benediction from Lord Shiva. Vrukasura asked that whoever he would touch upon the head would be destroyed. This is the sort of benediction sought by demons. Ravana and Hiranyakashipu also received such benedictions. They thought that by becoming powerful, they could elude death. This is typical demoniac mentality. None of these demons, however, was saved from the death by the benediction received from demigods. Rather, ultimately, they were all killed by the Supreme Law. It is nature's law that everyone here must die. No one who takes birth in the material world can live eternally. The material world is called Martyaloka, meaning that every living entity here is subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. In illusion, people do not see this. They try to adjust their material conditions so that they can live perpetually. Modern scientists also aspire to be immortal in imitation of Hiranyakashipu. This is all foolishness. One should not be afraid of dying, but one should be cautious and ask, what sort of situation will I attain in my next life as a result of my activities? A devotee is never afraid of death. He simply prays to Krishna. I may die and take birth again repeatedly as you like, but I only ask that in whatever condition I may live, by your mercy, I will never forget you. A devotee is not afraid, but he is cautious not to fall down. At the same time, he knows that whatever percentage of devotional service he renders is to his permanent credit. The story of Ajamila is the perfect illustration of that point. We should follow the rules and regulations very strictly, but even if we fall down, there is no loss. That is the statement of Narada Muni quoted above. Even if one takes to Krishna consciousness on the basis of sentiment and executes devotional service for only some time and again returns to material life, whatever service he has rendered is recorded, and one day he will be saved, just as Ajamila was saved. After the Vishnudutas disappeared, Ajamila at first wondered whether he had been dreaming, that they had come to release him from the binding ropes of the Yamadutas. When Ajamila was on his deathbed, practically in a coma, he actually saw the Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, but it seemed to him that he was just dreaming. When he saw that he was in fact released from the fearsome agents of Yamaraja, he wanted to see the Vishnudutas again. They had appeared very splendid. Their bodily features were just like those of Lord Vishnu, and they were decorated like him and carried the four symbols of his potency, the conch shell, lotus, club, and disc. Their bodies shone with a very beautiful luster, and their dress was of golden silk. Therefore, Ajamila inquired, where are those beautiful personalities who released me from the bondage of the Yamadutas? Ajamila thought my whole life was full of sinful activities, so how could I be worthy of seeing such great personalities? He concluded, perhaps in my previous life I did something good, and as a result I have been allowed to see the Vishnudutas. In fact, early in life, Ajamila had been a faithful servant of Lord Narayana, and as a result he was able to see the Vishnudutas. It was the good association Ajamila had been blessed with in his early days that saved him. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Macha 22.54, Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastre Kai, Lavamatra Sadhu Sanghe Sarva Siddhi Hoy. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. In the beginning of his life, Ajamila was certainly very pure, and he associated with devotees and brahmanas. Because of that pious activity, even though he was fallen, he was inspired to name his son Narayana. Certainly, this was due to good counsel given from within by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smrtir jnanam apohanancha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The Lord is so kind that if one has ever rendered service to him, the Lord never forgets him. Thus the Lord from within gave Ajamila the inspiration to name his youngest son Narayana, so that in affection he would constantly call Narayana, Narayana, and thus be saved from the most fearful and dangerous condition at the time of his death. Such is the mercy of Krishna. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. By the mercy of Guru and Krishna, one receives the seed of bhakti devotional service. Watering this seed by the process of hearing and chanting the name of the Lord saves a devotee from the greatest fear. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore change a devotee's name to one that reminds him of Vishnu. If at the time of death the devotee can remember his own name, such as Krishna Dasa or Govinda Dasa, he can be saved from the greatest danger. Therefore, the change of names at the time of initiation is essential. The Krishna consciousness movement is so meticulous that it gives one a good opportunity to remember Krishna somehow or other. Remembrance of Krishna at the time of death is generally possible only for persons who have established an intimate relationship with Krishna throughout a lifetime of devotional service. When Ajamila was a young boy, he was trained by his father to be completely faithful to the Lord. And until the age of 20, he served Lord Narayana very nicely. Although Ajamila had fallen down from the standard of devotional service to Lord Narayana and forgotten his relationship with him, Narayana did not forget. And in Ajamila's hour of need, he reciprocated his devotee's love. Thus, Ajamila was given the presence of mind to remember Narayana at the time of death. Krishna is very appreciative of even a small amount of devotional service. He confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 2.40. Neha bhikramanasosti prechavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path protects one from the most fearful type of danger. If a person practices even a small amount of devotional service, it can save him from the greatest danger. So why not take to Krishna consciousness? Engage in devotional service always, 24 hours a day. Then there is no question of danger. One who has become Krishna conscious is fearless. He knows he is under the protection of Krishna. Chapter 18. Pilgrim with a Purpose. Ajamila continued, I am a sinless cheater who has killed his Brahminical culture. Indeed, I am sin personified. What am I in comparison to the all auspicious chanting of the holy name of Lord Narayana? I am such a sinful person, but since I have now gotten this opportunity, I must completely control my mind, life, and senses and always engage in devotional service so that I may not fall again into the deep darkness and ignorance of material life. Because of identifying oneself with the body, one is subjected to the desires for sense gratification, and thus one performs many kinds of pious and impious acts. This is what constitutes material bondage. Now I shall disentangle myself from material bondage, which has been caused by the Supreme Lord's illusory energy in the form of a woman. Being a most fallen soul, I was victimized by the illusory energy and have become like a dancing doll led around by a woman's hand. Now I shall give up all lusty desires and free myself from this illusion. I shall become a merciful, well-wishing friend to all living entities and always absorb myself in Krishna consciousness. Simply because I chanted the holy name of the Lord in the association of devotees, my heart is now becoming purified. Therefore, I shall not fall victim again to the false use of material sense gratification. Now that I have become fixed in absolute truth, I shall no longer identify myself with the body. I shall give up the false conceptions of I and mine and fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami continued, because of a moment's association with devotees, the Vishnudutas, Ajamila detached himself from the material conception of life with determination. Thus, free from all material attraction, he immediately started for Haridwar. There, he took shelter at a Vishnu temple, where he executed the process of bhakti-yoga. He controlled his senses and fully applied his mind in the service of the Lord. Thus, Ajamila fully engaged in devotional service, and in this way, he detached his mind from the process of sense gratification and became fully absorbed in thinking of the form of the Lord. When his intelligence and mind were fixed upon the form of the Lord, Ajamila once again saw before him four celestial persons. He could understand that they were those he had seen previously, and thus he offered them his obeisances by bowing down before them. Upon seeing the Vishnudutas, Ajamila gave up his material body at Haridwar on the bank of the Ganges. He regained his original spiritual body, one appropriate for an associate of the Lord. Accompanied by the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, he then boarded an airplane made of gold. Passing through the airways, he went directly to the abode of Lord Vishnu, the husband of the goddess of fortune. Because of bad association, Ajamila had given up all Brahminical culture and religious principles. Becoming most fallen, he had stolen, drunk liquor, and performed other abominable acts. He had even kept a prostitute. Thus, he had been destined to be carried away to hell by the order carriers of Yamaraja. But he was immediately rescued simply by a glimpse of the chanting of the holy name Narayana. Therefore, one who desires freedom from the material bondage should adopt the process of chanting and glorifying the name, form, fame, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at whose feet all the holy places stand. One cannot derive this benefit from other methods, such as pious atonement, speculative knowledge, or meditation in mystic yoga. Because even after following such methods, a person will take to fruitive activities again, unable to control his mind, which is contaminated by the base qualities of nature, namely passion and ignorance. Because this very confidential historical narration had the potency to vanquish all sinful reactions, a person who hears or describes it with faith and devotion is no longer doomed to hellish life, regardless of his having a material body and regardless of how sinful he may have been. Indeed, the Yamadutas do not approach him even to see him. After giving up his body, he returns home back to Godhead, where he is very respectfully received and worshipped. While suffering at the time of death, Ajamila chanted the holy name of the Lord, and although the chanting was directed toward his son, he nevertheless returned home back to Godhead. Therefore, if a person faithfully and inoffensively chants the holy name of the Lord, what doubt is there that he will return to Godhead? Srimad-Bhagavatam 6.2.34 to 49. Determination. The holy name of God is all auspicious. Therefore, for one who constantly practices chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, there cannot be any inauspiciousness. Just by chanting, one is put into an auspicious condition of life perpetually. Those engaged in broadcasting the holy name of the Lord through the Krishna Consciousness movement should always consider what their position was before they came and what it is now. They had fallen into abominable lives as meat eaters, drunkards, and woman hunters, performing all kinds of sinful activities. But now they have been given the opportunity to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, they should always appreciate this opportunity. By the grace of the Lord, we are opening many branches, and the members of this movement should use this good fortune to chant the holy name of the Lord and serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. They must be conscious of the difference between their present conditions and their past conditions and should always be very careful not to fall from the most exalted life of Krishna consciousness. Every devotee of Krishna should have this determination. Devotees have been elevated to an exalted position by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master. And if they remember that this is a great opportunity and pray to Krishna that they will not fall again, their lives will be successful. Being fully Krishna conscious, Ajamila settled the debts he had accrued due to his sinful activities, and he was filled with determination to continue chanting the holy name of the Lord Narayana. If I continue chanting the holy name of the Lord, he thought, I will always be engaged in the highest welfare activities for the benefit of all living entities, and I shall be very peaceful. Because he was now purified of all sinful reactions, Ajamila realized that Krishna was dictating from within his heart that his duty was to become every living entity's well-wisher, everyone's friend. The devotees of the Lord are very kind. They preach Krishna consciousness for the welfare of the general public, and thus they are friends to all living entities. Others cannot be well-wishers of all. The politicians, for example, engage in so-called service of their countrymen. But they are not the true friends of everyone in the land, because although they may serve the interests of their fellow men, they do not look after the interests of the animals. In this way, they discriminate. A devotee is a friend to every living entity, whether a man, animal, insect, or plant. A devotee is not willing to kill even an ant, but a non-devotee will mercilessly send animals to the slaughterhouse and in the same breath declare himself the friend of everyone. Krishna, God, is the best friend of every living entity. He is equal to everyone. He is not only the friend of the residents of Vrindavana, the gopis, his parents, the cowherd men and boys, the cows, but he is everyone's friend because everyone is part and parcel of him. So Krishna loves everyone unlimitedly, and Krishna's devotees inherit the super excellent loving qualities of Krishna. Therefore, they are truly the friends of everyone. The karmis, fruitive workers, perform sinful acts for their personal interest, killing innocent animals and becoming puffed up with their material opulence. Jnanis, those in search of liberation through knowledge of Brahman, are also interested only in themselves. But bhaktas or devotees are interested in the well-being of everyone. A devotee is especially merciful to the fallen conditioned souls. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the personification of bhakti, loving devotion to God, teaching all of us how to become devotees. He is therefore called Patita Pavana, or the one who delivers the fallen conditioned souls. Anyone following in his footsteps is also Patita Pavana. Ajamila was now in the same mood, and thus he thought, now I shall be able to become the friend of all living entities and become peaceful. This should be the standard determination for all Krishna conscious persons. A devotee of Krishna should free himself from the clutches of Maya, and he should also be compassionate to all others suffering in those clutches. The activities of the Krishna consciousness movement are meant not only for oneself but for others also. This is the perfection of Krishna consciousness. One who is interested only in his own salvation is not as advanced in Krishna consciousness as one who feels compassion for others and who therefore propagates Krishna consciousness. Such an advanced devotee will never fall down, for Krishna will give him special protection. That is the sum and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement. Everyone is like a plaything in the hands of the illusory energy and is acting as she dictates. One should come to Krishna consciousness to release oneself and others from this bondage. Association with devotees. These verses lucidly explain how a living entity is victimized by his material conditioning. The beginning of illusion is to misidentify oneself as the body. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita begins with the spiritual instruction that one is not the body but the spirit soul within the body. One can always remain conscious of this fact only if one remains pure by chanting the holy name of Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and staying in the association of devotees. This is the secret of success. Therefore, we stress that one should chant the holy name of the Lord and keep oneself free from all the contaminations of this material world, especially the contaminations of lusty desires for illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. With determination, one should vow to follow these principles and thus be saved from the miserable condition of material existence. The first necessity is to become freed from the bodily conception of life. Ajamila was immediately freed from the illusory bodily conception of life by hearing the conversation between the Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas. The proof is that right after this incident, he left his wife and children and went straight to Haridwar for further advancement in spiritual life. It is mentioned here that he took shelter in a temple of Vishnu and executed the process of devotional service. Our Krishna consciousness movement has established his temples all over the world for this very purpose. There is no need to travel to Haridwar. Anyone can take shelter of the temple nearest him, engage in the devotional service of the Lord, and thus achieve the highest success in life by becoming absorbed in Krishna consciousness. If one worships the deity of Krishna in the temple, one's mind will naturally absorb in thought of the Lord and his form. There is no distinction between the form of the Lord and the Lord himself. Therefore, bhakti-yoga is the easiest system of yoga. Yogis try to concentrate their minds upon the form of the super soul, Vishnu, within the heart. But this same objective is easily achieved when one's mind is absorbed in thinking of the deity in the temple. In every temple, there is a transcendental form of the Lord, and one may easily think of this form by seeing the Lord during the formal worship ceremony or arati, by sacrificing one's money, time, and energy for the worship of the Lord, of the deity, and by constantly thinking of the form of the deity, one becomes a first-class yogi. This is the best process of yoga, as confirmed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenam taratmana sraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamo mataha. Of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So the first class yogi is he who controls his senses and detaches himself from material activities by always thinking of the form of the Lord. Back to Godhead. The Vishnudutas who had rescued Ajamila came before him again when his mind was firmly fixed upon the form of the Lord. They had gone away for some time to give Ajamila a chance to become firmly fixed in meditation upon the Lord. Now that his devotion had matured, they returned to take him back to Godhead. Understanding that the same Vishnudutas had returned, Ajamila offered them his obeisances by bowing down before them. Ajamila was now ready to return home back to Godhead. and thus he gave up his material body and, regained his original spiritual body. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. The result of perfection in Krishna consciousness is that after giving up one's material body, one is immediately transferred to the spiritual world in one's original spiritual body to become an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some devotees go to Vaikuntha to become associates of Lord Vishnu, and others go to Golok Vrindavana to become associates of Krishna. Spiritual airplanes from the spiritual planets, like the one that came for Ajamila, can take one back home, back to Godhead, in a second. The speed of such spiritual airplane can only be imagined. Spirit is finer than the mind, and everyone has the experience of how swiftly the mind travels from one place to another. Therefore, one can imagine the swiftness of the spiritual form by comparing it to the speed of the mind. In less than even a moment, a perfect devotee can return home back to Godhead, immediately after giving up his material body. Such perfection is not available to anyone but the devotees of the Lord. It has been seen that even after achieving so-called perfection, many karmis, jnanis, and yogis become attached to material activities again. Many so-called swamis and yogis give up material activities as false, jagan michya. But after some time, they nevertheless resume material activities by opening hospitals and schools or performing other activities for the benefit of the public. Sometimes they participate in politics, although still falsely declaring themselves sannyasis, members of the renounced order. All these activities are illusory aspects of the material world. If one actually desires to get out of the material world, he must take to devotional service, which begins with Sravanam Kirtanam Vishnoho, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. The Krishna consciousness movement has actually proved this. In the Western countries, many young boys and girls who had been addicted to drugs and who had other bad habits, which they could not give up, abandoned all those propensities and very seriously engaged in chanting the glories of the Lord as soon as they joined the Krishna consciousness movement. In other words, this process is the perfect method of atonement for actions performed in the modes of passion and ignorance. The Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.19 confirms this. Sada rajastamo bhava kamalobhadayascha ye chetayetar anavidham sthitam sattve prasidati. As a result of acting under the modes of passion and ignorance, one becomes increasingly lusty and greedy. But when one takes to the process of chanting and hearing about Krishna, one comes to the platform of goodness and becomes happy. As he advances in devotional service, all his doubts are completely eradicated. Bhijyate hrudaya grandhis chidyante sarva samshayaha. Thus, the knot of his desire for fruitive activities is cut to pieces. At the time of death, one is certainly bewildered because his bodily functions are disordered. At that time, even one who throughout his life has practiced chanting the holy name of the Lord may not be able to chant the Hare Krishna mantra very distinctly. Nevertheless, such a person receives all the benefits of chanting the holy name. While the body is fit, therefore, why should we not chant the holy name of the Lord loudly and distinctly? If a person does so, it is quite possible that even at the time of death, he will be able to properly chant the holy name of the Lord with love and faith. In conclusion, one who chants the holy name of the Lord constantly is guaranteed to return home back to Godhead without a doubt. Chapter 19. Erasing all doubts. King Parikshit said, O my Lord, O Sukadeva Goswami, Yamaraja is the controller of all living entities in terms of their religious and irreligious activities, but his order has been foiled. When his servants, the Yamadutas, informed him of their defeat by the Vishnudutas, what did he reply? O great sage, never before has it been heard anywhere that an order from Yamaraj has been baffled. Therefore, I think that people will have doubts about this, that no one but you can eradicate. Since that is my firm conviction, kindly explain the reasons for these events. Sri Sukadeva Goswami replied, My dear king, when the order carriers of Yamaraj were baffled and defeated by the order carriers of Vishnu, they approached their master, the controller of Samyamani Puri and master of sinful persons, to tell him of this incident. The Yamaduta said, Our dear Lord, how many controllers are there in this material world? How many causes are responsible for manifesting the various results of activities performed under the three modes of material nature? If in this universe there are many judges who disagree about punishment and reward, their contradictory actions will neutralize one another, and no one will be punished or rewarded. Otherwise, if their contradictory acts fail to neutralize one another, everyone will have to be both punished and rewarded. Since there are many different karmis or fruity workers, there may be different judges to give them justice. But just as one central emperor controls different departmental rulers, there must be one supreme controller to guide all the judges. The supreme judge must be one, not many. It was our understanding that you are that supreme judge and that you have jurisdiction even over the demigods. Our impression was that you are the master of all living entities, the supreme authority who discriminates between the pious and impious activities of all human beings. But now we see that the punishment ordained under your authority is no longer effective, since your order has been transgressed by 4 wonderful and perfect persons. We were bringing the most sinful Ajamila toward the hellish planets, following your order, when those beautiful persons from Siddhaloka forcibly cut the knots of the ropes with which we were arresting him. As soon as the sinful Ajamila uttered the name Narayana, these 4 beautiful men immediately arrived and reassured him, saying, Do not fear, do not fear. We wish to know about them from your Lordship. If you think we are able to understand them, kindly describe who they are. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Thus having been questioned, Lord Yamaraja was very pleased with his order carriers. Because of hearing from them the holy name of Narayana, he remembered the lotus feet of the Lord and began to reply. Srimad-Bhagavatam 6.3.1 to 11. Who is in charge? Maharaj Parikshit became astonished and asked Sukadeva Goswami, How is it possible for anyone to surpass the order of Yamaraj? Nobody can supersede a warrant issued by the police magistrate. Similarly, Yamaraja is the chief of the universal police, and he acts on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Yamaraja's business is to arrest all the criminal living entities and subject them to punishment in his region, Yamaloka. Sinful persons are taken there and put into various hellish conditions. The case of Ajamila, however, is exceptional. The Yamadutas were ordered to arrest him and bring him to the court of Yamaraja, but the Vishnudutas released him from their grasp. The Vishnudutas' interference with the Yamadutas was apparently unlawful. But just as Lord Vishnu can do anything, his messengers can likewise nullify any order in the material world. That is the power of the Supreme Lord. In the material world, no one has the authority or power to check the orders of Yamaraja. But the Vishnudutas acted under the higher authority of the Supreme Lord. When the Yamadutas returned to Yamaloka, they immediately went to Yamaraj and asked, How is it that we are checked from carrying out our duty? My dear Lord, how many controllers are there? Are you the only controller, or are there many other controllers? Less intelligent men think that a particular demigod such as Indra, Surya, or Chandra is supreme. This is like thinking the policeman on the street is all powerful within the state. There are so many police constables controlling the crowd in the street, but only foolish persons do not understand that above the constables are many higher officers, all the way up to the police commissioner, the governor of the state, and the president. The Yamaduta simply carried out the orders of Yamaraja, thinking him to be the supreme controller. And this was the first incident in which they were stopped from executing his orders. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura says that the Yamadutas were so disappointed that it was almost with anger that they asked Yamaraja whether there were many masters other than him. Furthermore, because the Yamadutas had been defeated and their master could not protect them, they were inclined to say that there was no need to serve such a master. If a servant cannot carry out the orders of his master without being defeated, what is the use of serving such a powerless master? Because the Yamadutas had been stopped, they doubted whether Yamaraja actually had the power to punish the sinful. Although they had gone to arrest Ajamila, following Yamaraja's order, they found themselves unsuccessful because of the order of some higher authority. Therefore, they were unsure of whether there were many authorities or only one. If there were many authorities who gave different judgments which could be contradictory, a person might be wrongly punished or wrongly rewarded, or he might be neither punished nor rewarded. According to our experience in the material world, a person punished in one court may appeal to another. Thus, the same man may be either punished or rewarded according to different judgments. However, in the law of nature or the court of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there cannot be such contradictory judgments. The judges and their judgments must be perfect and free from contradictions. Actually, the position of Yamaraja was very awkward in the case of Ajamila, because according to everything they had been taught by Yamaraja, the Yamadutas were right in attempting to arrest Ajamila, but the Vishnudutas had baffled them. Although Yamaraja, under these circumstances, was accused by both the Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas, he is perfect in administering justice because he is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he will explain what his real position is and how everyone is controlled by the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead. In this world, there must be measures for controlling the living entities. Shastra or scripture is meant for controlling civilized men. From this word comes the word Sishya, meaning disciple, or one who voluntarily accepts the control or guidance of the spiritual master. Those who are not gentle must be controlled by astra or weapons. The police force needs guns and clubs to control the thieves and rogues of society. The Yamadutas inquired from their master whether there are different departments of justice for different types of men. In the material world, a person is contaminated by some combination of the three qualities of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance, and he conducts his activities accordingly. Symptoms of one chiefly under the influence of the mode of ignorance or laziness, excessive sleeping, and uncleanliness. The main symptom of one chiefly under the influence of the mode of passion is a strong desire to exploit material nature and other living entities for one's own sense enjoyment. And the chief symptom of one under the influence of mode of goodness is knowing things as they are. To such a person, everything is revealed in its proper way. The Yamaduta suggested, there may be many controllers of people in the different modes of nature, but who is the chief controller? And how are his actions carried out? As far as we know, you are the controller of everyone. In governmental management, there may be departmental officials to give justice to different persons, but the law must be one, and the central law must control everyone. The Yamadutas could not imagine that two judges would give two different verdicts in the same case, and therefore they wanted to know who the supreme judge is. The Yamadutas were certain that Ajamila was the most sinful man, but although Yamaraja wanted to punish him, the Vishnudutas excused him. This was a puzzling situation that the Yamadutas wanted Yamaraja to clarify. The Yamadutas had thought that Yamaraja was the only person in charge of administering justice. They were fully confident that no one could counteract his judgments. But now, to their surprise, his order had been violated by these four wonderful persons from Siddhaloka. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura suggests that the Yamadutas may have said to Yamaraj, "We think that your absolute power of controlling is finished, because four very wonderful personalities checked us from executing our duty which you gave us. Vishwanath Chakravarti also remarks that the Yamadutas may have wanted to bring the Vishnudutas before Yamaraja. If Yamaraja could then have punished the Vishnudutas, the Yamadutas would have been satisfied. Otherwise, they desired to commit suicide. Before pursuing either course, however, they wanted to know about the Vishnudutas from Yamaraja, who is also omniscient. Submissive inquiry. The Yamadutas said, "We wish to learn from you what are the actual facts regarding this incident. If you think that we shall be able to understand, please enlighten us." This is the way of inquiring submissively from superiors, not challenging. We shall always find that Maharaj Parikshit, Arjuna, and anyone else executing this process of spiritual enlightenment inquires with humble submission and a mood of service. Merely because we put a question to our superior does not mean that he is obliged to answer us. Sometimes he may refuse if we are not able to comprehend the answer. We cannot demand. Inquiry, submission, and service are the way to knowledge. Whenever Maharaj Parikshit questioned Sukadeva Goswami, he said very submissively, "If you think that I shall be able to understand, please answer this question." Before Maharaj replied to the Yamadutas, he first remembered the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Just as the subordinate puts the question to his superior with a submissive attitude, similarly, the superior is not proud, boasting, "Yes, I can answer your question." He remembers the lotus feet of the Lord and prays, "Whatever you help me to speak, I will answer." As long as the teacher is not proud and the disciple is not disobedient, puffed up, or impudent, they can exchange spiritual questions and answers. One should not inquire in a challenging mood, and the one who answers should remember the lotus feet of the Lord so that the right answer will be given. Yamaraja was very pleased with his servants because they had chanted the holy name of Narayana in his dominion. Yamaraj has to deal with men who are all sinful and who can hardly understand Narayana. Consequently, when his order carriers uttered the name of Narayana, he was extremely pleased. For he is also a Vaishnava. Chapter 20, Under One Master. So chapter 20, so we're going to stop here and we'll read the rest of the three chapters, chapter 20, 21, and 22 in our next part. And before concluding our session, we're going to have a small kirtan and we can conclude at the time. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. The Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Jai. So thank you very much for joining this reading. We hope you will be able to join us in the next reading also, continuing from chapter 20. And in the next reading, we'll be able to complete the 3 chapters of this book, A Second Chance. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.